Do you submit or receive backup offers? What if I told you you could be doing them all wrong? Hi, my name is Kevin Howard. I'm a broker associate here in the state of Florida, and I'm going to go over the proper way to handle backup offers on your listing or on a listing for your prospective buyer. What we see all too often is a buyer's agent wants to submit an offer for a property that's already under contract. And what they typically do is they write up their offer nice and pretty. They send it over to the listing agent, and the listing agent says, "Got it, received it. I'll let you know if the deal falls through." Everybody goes about their merry way, and they feel like they have a backup offer in place. So when the first deal falls through, they're automatically going to be in first place and they're going to start working towards a closing. That is not the case, because guess what? You don't actually have an offer in place. You do not have a contract. You simply are opening the door for more negotiations. So let's talk about how we want to handle this to make sure that we are protecting both our buyers and our sellers, depending on which side of the coin you happen to be on. Now, again, I am a broker associate here in Florida, so what I'm going to be covering is the Florida contracts. So if you are in a different state, your contracts are most likely going to be different. You just have to check with your legal department and your contracts and see how they look. Okay. Now, this is a FAR/BAR as is contract that we're going to be using here as our example. If I'm a buyer's agent and I want to submit a backup offer for a home that's already under contract, I'm going to complete this contract, this offer, just as I typically would, fill in all the information, my offer amount, my earnest money amount, the title company information, the loan amount, if there's a loan, the balance to close, all the way down. Now, here on line 45, this is our acceptance date. So this blank right here, I'm going to leave blank for now, okay? And I'm going to explain to you here in a few minutes why we can leave that blank. Next is our closing date. Now there's some information that we can garner that will help us calculate what this closing date would be. But simply what we would put is we would put the words "or before." So closing shall occur on or before, and then we could put whatever date we want to put. Okay. And I'll give you some tips on how to kind of gauge that before we're done here today. And if you're familiar with the FAR/BAR contract, you know that down here on page 11, let me scroll down there, that is the section that has all of our addendas. So if this is an HOA, we would check off the HOA box. If this is the FHA or VA financing, we check that off, right? If it's I don't know, housing for older persons, for example, we would check that off. Or lead-based paint, we would check that off. Well, here, letter W, we have backup contract. So all we do is we simply check off that box for the backup contract. So that tells the world that yes, even though this is a fully executed contract, because that's where the problem typically comes in, is we do not have the buyer and seller's full signatures on these contracts. So that therefore you don't have a backup offer in place. So what happens is the buyers sign, the sellers sign, there's a meeting of the minds as far as the price and terms. We have this W checked off here for backup contract. And then from there, we have the addendum, which is the actual backup addendum. And what that looks like is very simple, right? It looks basically one paragraph here. So the buyers would initial, the sellers would initial. Of course, you got their names up here and the property address. And it simply states, this backup contract is subject to the termination of a prior executed contract between the seller and a third party for the sale of the property. If the property executed contract is terminated and seller delivers written notice of the termination to buyer, meaning our new buyer, on or before, and we would put a date in here, this contingency shall be removed and this backup contract shall move into first position. So boom, we are automatically in contract. Not it's time to negotiate again to see if we can get it under contract. So all the negotiations happen up front while the home is already under contract with the third party. There's a meeting of the minds as far as price and terms. Buyers sign, sellers sign. The addenda, right? This backup contract addenda is initialed off. Then once this is removed, the backup contract moves into first position. Now, I told you about the effective date, how you can leave that blank, and here's why. The effective date of this backup contract shall be the date that the seller delivers written notice of the termination of the prior executed contract. So when contract one, the one that was under contract when your buyers decided they wanted to put an offer in also, when this contract becomes terminated and the sellers or the listing agent notifies the buyer's agent that, hey, our deal fell through, you're now in position one, that notification, that tells us our effective date. Okay, so that's why you can leave that blank over here on the as is contract. Let me scroll back up so you can see what I'm referencing there. And right here, this acceptance date blank right here, right? Time for acceptance and offer countermeasures effective date. So our acceptance date becomes the date that we get notified that the contract that was previously in first position became terminated. Now, when this happens, the buyer may terminate this backup contract by delivering written notice to the seller prior to the date seller delivers written notice of the termination of the prior executed contract, and buyer shall be refunded the deposit, if any deposits have been paid, thereby releasing buyer and seller from all further obligations under this contract. So what we're saying here is the buyer puts in a backup contract, they negotiate with the seller, they come to a price and terms, we get fully executed contract and this backup contract addendum. Meanwhile, most likely that buyer is going to continue looking at properties because, you know, this other one's already sold, so to speak, right? It's under contract, and as far as they know, it's going to go through. They're hoping it doesn't. So they're going to keep looking at properties. Let's say they find another property that they want to put an offer on, and they do, and they get the offer accepted. Well, you know, this first one over here, they still don't know if it would ever come to fruition or not. So they simply deliver notice saying that they want to terminate their backup offer. As long as they do that prior to the seller notifying them that contract one was terminated, they can do so and receive, what does it say? Shall be refunded deposit, right? So what we're saying here is not only are we signing an actual contract for a backup position, but this deposit money that we identify here on line 28, they're actually going to submit their deposit to the title company. Now, there's obviously ways around that. You could simply write another addendum, or you could put in the contract down here on page, what is it, page 12, I believe. Yeah, down here on page 12, additional terms, you could simply, you know, put something to the effect of, you know, deposits shall be made, you know, within 3 days of effective date or something like that. And I would just want to clarify that if I was going to hold off on putting a deposit, which I would also recommend. But you kind of don't really need to do that, even because all you have to do is check this box right here, because deposit is to be made 3 days after effective date. Well, what is our effective date? We go over here to our backup contract addendum. That dictates the effective date. So you got a little bit of wiggle room there, in my opinion. So you know, approach this the best way that's best for you and for your clients. At the end of the day, know your contracts, right? Know your contracts, know what they say. I hope you found this valuable, and if there's anything we can do to help you sell more real estate, please let us know. Meanwhile, head over to our Facebook group, the Agent Growth Collective, Agent Growth Collective on Facebook, and join us in there for more tips and tricks.